Hi, this is Tiffany Travels, where we help women travel, build wealth, and live richer. So today we're really excited because we have a guest that lives in San Miguel de Allende. I'm going to bring her on right now. Hi.
Hello.
So we can start by you introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your channel and what you do in San Miguel de Allende.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tiffany, for having me here. I'm Michelle Wedderburn, and I live in San Miguel de Allende, which is located in central Mexico. I've lived there for almost 7 years. I can't believe it. And I am the founder of Casa Elm, which is a guest house space, and I help people who are interested in moving to central Mexico or just want to solo travel and have a warm welcome. So that's pretty much what I'm doing now at this point. But I started out being an expat, semi-retired, and I got into this about 3 years ago.
Hey, Dee. Dee just joined. She says,
Hi,
hey.
how are you? What's up, Dee? She lives also in San Miguel, so I know her.
Yeah. So you're a relocation specialist. What does that entail? Like, do you help people with the visa process? What do you do with that?
I actually educate people on how to move to Mexico the right and legal way. I provide space. I call us a soft landing in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico. So basically, the focus of Casa Elm is that, but we are a space for travelers, solo travelers. I host mostly Black women, but it is open to everyone. It's not just relocation, but that has been pretty much what we've done a lot of since the start. So it's become one of my like kind of key things where I'm helping individuals who really want to do it the right way. I get them educated, and usually that process starts with them coming for either a half week or a full week of being immersed into presentations, real estate tours, neighborhood tours, sitting with the immigration specialists to understand what's the best way to do it for them because everyone's journey is very different. It includes a cultural tour so we can educate people on the traditions and the norms in Mexico so they don't just parachute in. Because most people just want to know, oh, where can I live? Where can I get my house? How much does it cost? What can I get for my money? But they don't understand that there's a psychology behind moving to Mexico. The expectations that you have are not based on how your house looks. So that's a big part of it. But I really try my best to educate people so that they have a soft landing once they decide to make that move.
Okay, Dee says it is very good to see you, and she's doing well.
I know I've been gone for a few weeks. I miss my SMA fam.
This is my
Yes.
mom. She says hi. Hi, mom.
Hi, mom.
So Casa Elm, is that like an Airbnb listing? Can
Mm-mm.
anybody go? Okay.
I mean, anyone can go, but it's not an Airbnb. We're not an Airbnb. I've
So they
never
go
been on Airbnb. Uh-huh.
they go directly to you, and they can do any a length of stay.
I wouldn't say any. We are on my website, which is right here on the screen, www.casaelm.com. And on the website, you can either book a room for dates, just like you would on Airbnb, or you can contact us directly at info@Casa Elm. But the best place to go to on my website is the events page. On the events page, it lists all the things that we do in terms of like a package. We do sabbaticals, we do a women's retreat, which is coming up in February, and we also have ongoing relocation tours and other events throughout the year. That's the page that's going to kind of fill you in. If you're just a solo traveler, yes, you can book directly there. So we're a space that seems like Airbnb, but we're not Airbnb because to me, Airbnb is not personal. I live there and that's my house. So it's a private home. It has its own separate area where I host my guests and I live in a separate space downstairs. But the space is very personable because we're there. That's why I call it the soft landing. We help navigate people that are coming for the first time. You know, we tell them, hey, text us. I create WhatsApp groups for the groups that are going to be there. For example, the most recent was Thanksgiving week. You know, we were sold out. I created a Thanksgiving group and everyone texts, becomes friends. We hang out together. You know, you kind of leave with a friend or friends. So it's a different experience. It's more personal than way more personal than Airbnb and a
Like,
hotel. Yeah,
yeah.
you get to know me and you get to know the guests, the other guests.
Dee says Michelle gives an experience that people absolutely love.
Thank you. Thank
And
you. And I love to feed people. So go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
how many people will hold in the space? How many people can you accommodate?
I can accommodate up to six people. So yeah, it's a nice size home. Mhm.
Okay. And here's your YouTube channel as well
Yes,
for people who are watching.
thank
This
you.
YouTube Casa Elm is your handle. So,
Mhm.
what made you choose San Miguel de Allende?
Oh, long story short. I actually visited Mexico in 2005, and that was I think it was my second stop. I think we landed in Mexico City, it was so long ago, and I believe we drove to San Miguel, and it was very different at that time. And you know, I was familiar with it enough, and then I became more familiar with Mexico over the years. And when I started researching in 2016, Mexico just kind of kept coming up as an option for a place to live. And in the end, I got in touch with some friends, Mexican friends, and I was asking questions like, where would be a great place to raise my son? Because he was 5 or 6 at the time.
Mhm.
And I was concerned about raising him, you know, outside of the United States. That was my goal, I should say. I wanted to raise him outside of the US. So I really started looking into what countries, and then San Miguel came up for Mexico, Guadalajara, Merida, Mexico City, even. I got quite a few suggestions from people, Oaxaca City, and when I did my research trip, I decided San Miguel was the right place for us.
Okay, so you mentioned a few cities in Mexico.
Mhm.
Did you look into any cities outside of Mexico for your move?
I initially started with other countries, for example, uh, Costa Rica, which seems so
Mhm.
cliche right now when I think about it. It's like, why Costa Rica? I don't know. And then Panama, same. You know, I don't know anything about Panama, but it just seemed like those were the places that people were initially looking into as far as a list goes. I even looked at Italy because I actually really love Italy as a country. But it didn't make sense. Like if you're moving for economic reasons, you don't move to a place where your money is worth less off the top. So Italy was scratched off the list very quickly. Plus, I didn't want to fly across the Atlantic Ocean to get back home. And Mexico made sense because I had so much experience with Mexico. And as I did deeper research, which didn't take very long to conclude, Mexico made sense for me. Costa Rica felt too small as a country goes. I like to explore, and I just didn't think that would be a good idea. And Panama just felt foreign. I've never been there, and I wasn't interested in going after I did my research and YouTube search and all the things. It didn't appeal to me as much. So Mexico kind of made sense at that time.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I love Italy. I love the food there, but it would be, an inconvenience going back and forth for like holidays or birthdays or just things that you need to be back home for. It's
Right.
like, do you really want to take an 8-hour flight for a
Right.
birthday or for Christmas or for New Year's. Or if you have any
Exactly.
business back in the States, you're like, do I really want to take an 8-hour flight to go check on a property or something?
And that's 8 hours if you're on the East Coast.
That's true.
So, yeah.
That's true. My mom says here you named several cities in Mexico: Merida, Guadalajara, Mexico City. But what was your deciding factor for San Miguel de Allende?
Well, first I was moving from Florida, so I definitely didn't want to go somewhere else that was hot again.
Mhm.
I love the heat, but I didn't want to burn all year. So Merida was quickly scratched off my list. I wasn't interested in Playa and Tulum and all those places because I visited those places and living in South Florida, which is extremely transient in terms of the community. It's a party city. You know, I lived in pretty much South Beach, and it was extremely transient. And when I visited Cancun, it felt the same. You know, just people coming and going all the time. And I think that my experiences in South Florida were that it's hard to make friends and create roots and community in places where people are coming and going on a regular basis. So for me, being somewhere where it felt more community based made more sense. So I started looking at Mexico City because they have their neighborhoods where you can really start to integrate with the locals and also maybe the expat community if you do enough research and things like this. But when I revisited San Miguel, literally within the first 24 hours, I knew that that was the right place because I loved the vibe. I loved how festive it was during the holiday, but also how safe I felt in the space, and how friendly people were. It just felt more of a foreign experience
Uh,
from what I was used to in Florida or in the US. And it's very easy to fall into that rhythm when it's not something you've had and it feels good to you. So that was really the drawing factor, I think, after doing, you know, I went there first, then I went to Mexico City. Later on, I explored. I didn't go to Merida. I was already familiar with Oaxaca, because over the years I visited other parts of Mexico, and San Miguel just felt right for many reasons. I think the most deciding factor was the fact that there were a lot of families in San Miguel, younger families, versus like Chapala and Ajijic felt a little bit of like a gap, you know, where there's like the locals, then there's the expat community, but the expat community is much older. And
mhm.
I'm sort of like tween, and having had my son at a later age, it was sort of like, well, I'm not quite, at the expat retirement thing, but I also wanted my kid to have like, a nice mix, family vibe wise. And I didn't care about the demographic in terms of, um, the races, because I didn't come here I didn't go to Mexico just seeking out the Black community. I actually was looking for a family community where it felt a little mixed, and San Miguel provided us with that. So I was happy there.
Well, that sounds awesome. So,
Mm,
if my mom is still watching, we're going to have to go to San Miguel de Allende maybe in
yes.
2025 because you
Yeah.
just sold it. It sounds great. We actually live in South Florida, so I totally understand what you're saying. Like everybody you meet is from somewhere else,
Yeah.
either from the Caribbean, from Latin America, or like
Yeah.
the Northeast. They're from New York, they're from New Jersey. It's
Right.
rare that you meet someone who is from Florida. So
And
I
they're
totally
moving around all the time. Like going to South Beach, it's like people are coming and it's a tourist spot, right? And there's nothing
yeah.
wrong with that. But it just feels like people are moving all the time. It's harder. I just felt that it was harder to make friends and have like really deep roots. And two, it can depend on your situation. I think if you work in a corporate setting, it's a little different. I didn't work in a corporate setting, so it was different for me.
Yeah. So, what is the visa process? What was it like for you moving to San Miguel de Allende?
It was more complicated than I expected because I think I went in with a very US citizen attitude, like, hey, I got a US citizen passport and, this should be a piece of cake. And that was based on my prior years of coming in and out of going in and out of Mexico. Just kind of, it was easy, but I didn't investigate it in advance. I just did a little research when I did my scouting trip. The second scouting trip, I did two. I did one in December of 2017 and another in February of 2018. And on the second scouting trip, I met with a specialist who gave me like a little packet, and I said, "Oh, okay, so there's more to this." I went back to Florida and I went to the Miami consulate, and I just made the assumption it was going to be kind of like breeze in and breeze out, because they don't really give you all the info you need. You really have to ask a lot of questions. You have to dig. So it was bumpy because of a lack of information. The information is there, but you kind of had to dig it out. That's how I felt, my experience. So there wasn't a person that like me or a consultant on the US side that I could talk to, because the consulate won't really talk to you until it's your time for your appointment.
Okay.
So the process was a little bumpy only because there was missing info. And yeah, so I ended up going like 4 different times, and it could have been faster. It's been faster for a lot of my clients because, I'm like, okay, this is what you need to do. Follow all the instructions, ask all the questions, be very detailed, bring more stuff, bring extra things. But I got through. It wasn't difficult. It was just bumpy.
Okay. And so for people who are just joining, you're like the expertise for people who are moving to San Miguel de Allende. You can help them, connect them with living experts like realtors. You can help them with the visa process. You can help them with lodging initially. You can help them also with schooling if they have kids, all those things.
Yes. I mean, I'll explain that my help is I do a few things. I do the relocation tour, which is an in-person experience. But prior to that, you can do a consultation, and I'll explain why that's important, right? Over the years, when I started prior to having a guest house. I started with consultations because a lot of people had questions, and I was kind of like, answering questions and sometimes on the phone talking for like an hour, 2 hours, and I realized, okay, this is something that's a need. And I started doing, consultations that were geared around your specific journey, because everyone's move and how they get to Mexico is different. Yes, you still have to fulfill the same requirements, but your journey is going to be different than mine and then this other family or this other person, because maybe you're just starting out, maybe you have a house, maybe you don't, maybe you sold everything, maybe you didn't. There's so many parts that are involved in this process, and I just really think that it makes sense to do a consultation first, whether it's with myself or someone that does what I do, because it can save you a lot of time, headaches, and mistakes and money. That's what I experienced. I lost a couple $1,000s because of things I didn't know, right? And so through that, I've been able to really talk to individuals, and they tell me, okay, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing. Some people already started the process, and now they want to come to Mexico, and they want to look for a place, and it's like, well, what kind of place are you expecting? What are you thinking about? What's your budget? What neighborhoods, what types of things appeal to you, especially if you've never visited. There are people who move and they didn't even do a research trip, which I highly recommend. But you
Mhm.
also need to know yourself, right? You need to know who you are and how tenacious you are. Is something going to, like, throw you off your rocker? Something simple like, oh, I didn't like the fact that I can't flush toilet paper, right? Like, people probably don't realize a lot of houses are this way, and they might come and be like, oh my God, like there's so many like things that could throw you off. And I think the more research you do and the more time you take to figure out your stuff and your things, it's going to be a more successful event that's going to probably be more pleasant, right? I mean, we all love where we are in terms of the people that live there, most of us. I
Mhm.
love Mexico. Like, I'm in the US and I love visiting my family, but honestly, I realize every time I come here, I love where I am. I'm super grateful. And I'm just like, thank you. Thank you for the life that I have over there. But at the same time, you just like understanding like who you are, what works for you, and doing the research to make sure that it makes sense. So that's what I recommend. So the programs that I offer in person, to me, I recommend a consultation first. So when you come into the program, you already kind of know what to expect. And what the program's going to do is teach you how to move into your own path successfully. For example, when people come, we welcome them, we do a meet and greet, and then we connect you with the resources you need. And the week is all about educating you. It's not you're going to find your dream house because you went out one day with a realtor. Maybe you will, but chances are you need to really understand the lay of the land. You need to understand the different neighborhoods. You need to understand what you get. You need to understand landlords are different. You need to understand how you should move into a contract with those landlords. And that takes time. You don't just, oh, I love this house. And people do this and I'm moving tomorrow. And then they get there and there's just things that they weren't happy with because they just jumped into stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you need to know that you're durable enough to make it through struggles if the struggle comes up. So people are landlords or people in Mexico, they move in a different way, a different speed. It's a different thing. Some landlords will fix things, some won't. So
Right.
yeah, just stuff like that can really throw you off.
Okay. And is that a true example that you use? You can't flush toilet paper in San
Yes.
Miguel de Allende?
Not everywhere, but a lot of places. Yes, it's
Wow.
old plumbing, it's septic, it's just different. Yeah.
Okay. Did not know that. So tell us about the cost of living there in San Miguel de Allende. I guess your cost.
Um, well, yeah, I won't talk about my cost of living because I have a business, but I'll tell you in general, the cost of living to me is definitely about, if you compare to something in the US, you're probably going to pay about 50% less. It depends on what it is. I'll talk about utilities, for example. Um, my internet, I have two separate internet accounts in my home, and I pay around 50 or 60 US a month for those. My water bill monthly, maybe $50, if that. And this is for, the guest house space. Food, it just depends. They have some really beautiful grocery stores that are very high end, very sophisticated. And if you shop there, then clearly you're going to pay a lot more than if you go to local, they call them tiendas, like the fruterias. They're going to
Mhm.
pay less at places like that. They have a lot of markets that come on certain days of the week. And those places are going to be a lot less and it's fresher. They're coming from the farm straight to the market and it's super affordable. Like you can buy probably a week's worth of fruits and vegetables for like 20 US dollars. Compared to the US, like I've been here, when did I get to the US? I don't know, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And, I just keep getting sticker shock. I was at the airport yesterday and I bought 4 slices of pizza. Uh, I could have just gotten two, but my son and I were hungry, so we got two each. I got one Perrier and one apple juice, and it was like $40. I was just like, this is insane. I could buy
Yes.
probably 3 pizzas or so for probably more. and I know where I am, so I anticipate, but it's like at every given moment, things are averaging about $100, pretty much. It doesn't matter what I do. I could blow my nose and that's going to cost me $50.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
So, yeah, but
Even
cost of living
cafe.
is good. Sorry.
I was saying even coffee. You can go into a coffee shop and get like a coffee and a pastry, and it could be close to $20.
I don't know how y'all do it, but yeah, I know I'm experiencing it. And I think, you do fall back into the rhythm, but it's very obvious. And I know the airport's not probably the best example, but I've been here and I've spent, for the last 2 weeks on things, like things that I want. For example, I love Thai food, and I can't get great Thai food in San Miguel. They have good Thai food probably in more or better in Mexico City, but in San Miguel there are a couple places, and I don't love them. So that's kind of one of my treats when I get back. Yeah, but I'm just trying things out and doing my thing, and happy to be here to visit, and do my thing for the holidays. But yeah, I'll be happy to get back to my more economic living. Hi,
Finding a new.
Alam. What's up, Chica? Yeah, she also is in San Miguel.
Nice. So tell us about your experience with the healthcare system. Do you have insurance, or do you just pay out of pocket whenever you need to use it?
Both, both. So I have insurance for more catastrophic things. Don't ask me how much it is because I don't remember. And hi, Tracy. What's up, amiga? And also out of pocket. So usually you can choose a higher deductible, which is what I've done. And then out of pocket costs are very affordable. I was just giving someone an example of this, I think it was yesterday, and I was telling them um, there have been a few times when I had to take my son in for an emergency scenario or situation, and it ended up costing me maybe $50, which included walking in an ER scenario, doctor, X-ray, and it was about $50. And this was without the insurance. This is just the out-of-pocket cost for the whole experience. So getting blood work, I think, is under $100, like for full check. Um, going to like an OBGYN also cost me about $60. Getting a mammogram cost me about $30. An ultrasound mammogram, maybe 40. I did both. So it's very affordable. I just don't understand why it's so expensive here
Hmm.
at all. You know, you can get you can get prescription drugs without having, not everything, but without having a um, doctor write something without your insurance, telling you need a referral and you need this and you need that and all the things. And, you do, yes, exactly that. You get more care, more attention. You can ask more questions. They take their time. Often they'll follow up with you and how are you doing? There are even doctors that come to our house. She
Yeah.
just commented on that.
Tracy just said that. That's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah, we have doctors that will come. That's what they do. Like that's their specialty is coming to your home. So it's really not what I think people expect and maybe have never experienced. So that adds, like I said, to the experience of moving and living in Mexico, because it's not just about, oh, well, how much does it cost for me to live in this house or this physical space? It's all the additional things that come along with the experience of living in Mexico as well. There's a lot more humanity and care.
Yeah, it sounds like it. This is
Mhm.
unexpected. Like this is just spend time with you, come to your house. Even the vet comes to the
Yes,
house.
yes, it's true. They do. They'll come to your house and take care of your pets.
It's unheard of.
Mhm.
So how do you feel walking around at night? Do you feel safe? You feel like you could walk around with your son, no problem?
For the most part, yes. But, again, that comes with where are you going? Where are you walking around? Um, the streets of San Miguel are not desolate. So it's not, basically, it's not, oh, okay, at night, there's no one out and I'm out here, walking these streets by myself in the dark. You have to use the same smarts that you would in any place in the world, the US and anywhere, especially as females. I think, we have our instincts for a reason. In terms of walking around in Central, I walk in the mornings. I mean, compared to when I lived in the US, there are certain things I wouldn't do or I didn't do that I do in Mexico. Like walking at 6:15 and it's kind of like a neighborhood street, not a lot of people around. I feel fine. Like I don't feel uncomfortable. If I hear of anything that could come up or happen, which doesn't happen, I don't hear of a lot of things often. Then I'm going to use my wisdom. And I can't say that this is anything that I've experienced, but I'm just saying if I experience or hear of anything, I'm going to use my wisdom. Example, when I lived here, same thing. When I lived in the United States, if I went out at night, I was always making sure, okay, I park in this place, make sure that, I know where I'm going, where am I driving. When I'm in Mexico, if I'm traveling, I like to drive to places. Oftentimes, me and my son, I've driven to other areas in Mexico that are like 3, 4, 5 hours away, no issues. So I'm always making sure I check the route, ask questions if I need to. Haven't had any issues at all. So I think you just exercise caution on a regular basis. But in San Miguel, yeah, there's really no issues at all that I've experienced in Mexico City or any place else. But I still err on the side of caution wherever I am in the world.
So you said you drive. Do you have your own car or do you rent a car when you're going on those drives?
Now I have my own car. I bought a car a couple years ago. Yeah.
Okay. And
Hmm.
then Tracy said her nail tech comes to the house too,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
is crazy. I've never heard of that.
Yes.
And Dee says hey to all the people who came in.
Hi, Dee. Again.
So did you move to San Miguel with a job or did you like transfer with a job or did you retire? How did that work?
No, I actually moved, and my ex, now ex, we were pretty much semi-retired. He was a pensioner. I had the intentions of doing something of a business, a retreat, actually. I was planning on doing women's retreats, probably 3, maybe 4 times a year. And, then COVID, the year that I was planning to do my first one was 2020. COVID hit. I didn't make the actual plan, but that was the goal at the end of 2019. And then moving into 2020, we all know what happened there. And it was just, kind of revamping, restructuring my life, realizing, okay, the relationship aspect isn't working. So now what? If you check my channel, I already, like I talked about, what happens if you move with a relationship and it doesn't work out, because that's also something to think about. And in my case, it actually propelled me down the path of doing my thing faster, sooner for myself. And fortunately, and I trust in my intuition, the universe, you know, higher beings, if you want to say God or whatever, to make things come to you that you need in your life when you need them. And that's, I feel like I'm a testimony for that as well. So I'm very pleased to be in San Miguel and to be able to continue to grow down this path that I've chosen, which was, peace over fear of change. and to explore things that I think we're all capable of creating and doing. And so for me, it's been really a beautiful thing to kind of look back and say, I'm glad I took that leap and that decision to make sure that my life was reflecting more peace, which is what I am,
Mhm.
until I'm not. And, making sure that the things that I'm doing really align with what I'm here for. I really feel like this is my purpose. So I created what you see in front of you. Yeah. So you can create your own path and your own job and your money. You can do it.
So we have a question here from Leslie. She says she saw where people drive ATVs there. Do some people use ATVs as their primary vehicle?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, so that's what you saw, Leslie. So how has your quality of life improved as a result of moving to San Miguel de Allende?
It has improved a lot. Things are more affordable for us that maybe living in the United States wasn't. For example, having someone come and take care of your home. You're welcome, Leslie. Yeah, I mean, it was a simple yes answer, but that's yeah, that's it. People do it. And what I wanted to add to that is maybe not so much in a bigger city. Like I wouldn't recommend riding that on the highway. Okay. But yeah, you can definitely maneuver around, and it's legal because I know it's not legal in some places in the US, maybe everywhere. I don't know. Um, in regard to the quality of life, like I said, you can get help, with things. You have more access to things that, for example, just having someone come and take care of your home for you, to clean for you, do your laundry. Those are things that I think we're not used to having. And sometimes when we move to places where it's accessible to us, sometimes it's hard to let go. We talk about this a lot in our little circles, how Black women don't want to relinquish, the cape. We don't
Mhm.
want to give up, hand things over. Somehow we feel bad to hand over a responsibility to someone that you're paying to do things. And I did that when I first moved. I had a housekeeper, and I was like, oh, I only need her one day a week, and she doesn't have to do my laundry. I'll do my laundry myself and all these things. And I remember my Mexican friends that had housekeepers were like I was crazy, and I remember that feeling of how they looked at me as if there was something wrong with me. And I thought to myself, well, why not have that help? You're paying, like, why not? you know? And so, yeah, Tracy as a housekeeper. So I've gone from that to a housekeeper literally 6 days a week, so full time.
Wow.
I mean,
6 days a
I have
week.
a guest house, but she also takes care of my space, and I can't even imagine. Like last week, I know this may sound really snooty, and it's not meant to be, but I was just like, I haven't done laundry for a minute. Like I was doing my laundry, getting my things ready to move from Florida up here to Connecticut, and it wasn't a problem doing it. It was just an observation. Like I've been making observations since I got here, which is what I do, so I'll probably drop some of them. And it's not a negative thing. It's just the things that hit you when you return back to where you left. The observation. So, for example, one observation which has nothing to do with the housekeeping part. I went to the hair store on Tuesday, I think, and I was just like in, like, the candy shop, but the hair shop. And I thought, this is like a little mini grocery store. We don't have this in Mexico, right? So I kind of walked in and I was just like, I didn't even know where to start. I was just in amazement. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is all the stuff that I can get from my black hair. And I was sort of,
Mhm.
wandering up and down the aisles and just looking at everything until I got overwhelmed. And I thought, do you really need any of this? And I was like, okay, just get what you came, just buy what you came for, and then, get out. But it was just an observation of how much access we have here to things. Like, I love candles. I went to Bath and Body Works, I think, and they just had so many candles. And my friend's like, "Oh, you want to buy some?" I was like, "No, because I'm going to weigh down my suitcase. I have other things to get." But it was just one of those observations of the things that I forget until I see it. And, I was just kind of like, okay, I do miss some of these things, but not enough to move back. But it is an observation. So having a housekeeper on the other end and then coming back and having to do certain things, again, another observation. Yeah. But yeah, we're spoiled over there in this regard. Quality of life in that regard is very high. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think having a housekeeper come even once a week would be a step up
Yes.
for most people. So to even fathom like 5 times a week, you're like, oh my God, it would never be dirty. Everything would just be
Yeah.
in place. It would
And
just
it's
always be done.
affordable. It's affordable, and you get to spend that time doing the things you want to do. You can choose to say, I want to read, I want to just relax, or I want to go out with my friends, or whatever the case might be. You can spend time doing something that's non-cleaning, right? Because I used
Mhm.
to clean all the time. I remember going home after having my business, which was part cleaning, part property services in Florida. So I had people who cleaned
Mhm.
for my clients, and I managed that process. But then I would go home and I would clean my house because I didn't want my workers at my house. At the time, I was just like, okay, and every night, I was doing my routine just to, because I like a clean house. And so now I don't really have to stress out about this. So it's nice to have that, because to me that adds a lot of quality to your everyday, every week, every month, every year. It just adds
Yeah.
quality to your life. Yeah,
It's hours you get back. And then you were
exactly.
saying you felt bad initially with
Hmm.
asking them to do things. And I think there's also a narrative here in certain cultures and in the States. Like I used to drop off laundry
Hmm.
and I would get feedback that that's lazy. Like you're being lazy. You can wash it yourself. You have a
Yeah,
washer and dryer in your house. Like I'm not lazy. I
I'm
just don't
busy.
have the time.
Exactly. You're busy. Yeah,
Right.
we find time. And I think that adds to, the ability for us to create. Again, you have time to think about, what is my passion? What things do I enjoy? What things do I want to do? What things do I want to explore? And if you needed to, how can I turn that into a living? So, yeah, pay someone, this money, plus you get to pour back into the community. My housekeeper, I just call it, she's actually more like managing the guest house in terms of the things that have to be done. And when we need extra people, I have two other ladies that come in as well. But she wrote me the sweetest message that brought tears to my eyes, and she was thanking me for her own opportunities to work there, and that she was able to, you know, elevate in her own life, but also she bought things for the children in the community where she lives because of the job that she work that she has with me. And I trust her. She's holding down the fort while I'm gone. So, I think it's important for us to think about these things when we move. It's not just what we get from it. It's like, okay, well, how else can I give back as well? Pay fair, treat everyone with respect. If someone asks you for help, investigate what they need. They might be outside of what you pay them. Maybe they need something. She's asked me several times for help, and I've helped her. And I'm okay with that because I can. And if you can, you should. And so I think it's important to think about your impact as well in the community that you choose to live in.
So we have another question here from Leslie, And she says, are there people in your expat community that have children attending college there? I was wondering what that experience might be like or if it's doable.
I actually have a 12-year-old, so I don't know about the college aspect. I think a couple of the ladies here have more grown-up kids. I want to say Alum has a child that's doing college online, but maybe not in a physical university per se. As far as my son, I hope he chooses to go to college in Mexico because there are some amazing opportunities. He speaks the language, and I think that if you have children that are underage, make sure that they are learning the language and make sure that, if there's the opportunity for them to go to college in Mexico, it's probably more affordable. I just haven't looked into those options. Yeah, so yes, Alum's son attends. But that's a great question. I can't really think of anyone off the top. I feel that a lot of the kids that have graduated from Micah's school go back to the U.S. to attend school, and I think that's just because they want that experience. It's not that they don't have choices. There are lots of universities throughout Mexico, especially in like Mexico, the big cities. Yeah.
So, what would you say the culture and the people is like there in San Miguel de Allende?
Warm and fuzzy, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of what I love about living in Mexico is the people are just friendlier. And again, another observation, coming back here, I look for eye contact. I don't get it. And that's okay. I can easily get back into my New England way and New England attitude or South Florida attitude. But I realize that's just the way it is here. It's our culture. It's not a knock. It's just the way it is. For example, when I moved from Connecticut years ago, early 2000s, people in Texas were very friendly in Dallas, and I wasn't used to that. So when people would say something to me, I kind of was like, like, why are they talking to me? And then I
Mhm.
realized my attitude was because of where I came from. So being in Mexico, I feel that it has helped us to be more in touch with our humanity. I say that all the time where we speak. You see someone on the street, most of the time, if it's a Mexican, they're almost expecting you to say something because maybe a lot of times US citizens or foreigners don't say anything because that's where we come from. But I always say buenos dias, buenas tardes, whatever, because I know that that's what they do and I like it. So it's definitely warm and fuzzy. And people receive us, and I think that's a plus. I've traveled around the world and I feel very received in Mexico.
Have you experienced any racism walking around or restaurants or in landlording, anything?
From the white people, yes, that's it. That's
Not from
it.
any Mexicans.
No, I have not. Not that I can recollect. I've had racism from not everyone, but I've had racism from some Caucasians and the white folks. I'm calling it as it is. If you're watching and you're white, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. It's what has happened, and it was blatant. That's why I'm saying this. So, but I haven't, and I don't want to get into it, but I haven't that I can think of. I haven't experienced it from from any Mexicans. What I will say is I also have some really cool white friends as well. And I know that sounds like a white person saying I have some cool black friends, but I want to just say that I've grown up in areas, neighborhoods my entire life where it was predominantly white. And I know how to integrate in all of these spaces. I grew up in a very white church and all the things, right? And I've had a lot of, different experiences with different races. I was married to a white man in my first marriage. So this is not just me saying stuff, right? But in Mexico, I haven't experienced that. And what I did experience, it was from a white person. And I have a lot of friends that when I first moved to Mexico that are Mexican and white, and those were my first friends because there weren't a lot of us in our community, and they were very open, very warm, and still are. And they love what I'm doing. In terms of community building, they comment when I see them. They're like, "Oh my God, there's a lot more of you guys here." Not in a negative way. At least that's not what my perception is. And it's been cool, but there are places that I think people have experienced this, but it's typically not from a local.
And are those Americans or are they just anywhere like Canadian, UK?
I mean, I don't know. I don't talk to them enough to know what the accent is, where they're from. But this one in particular that I'm talking about, yeah, she was American. Yeah.
Okay, so you moved with a 5-year-old, right? Who's now
Six.
12.
He was 6 at the time.
6.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so how was that like with the schooling, with the language? Did he go to an international school? Did he learn the language and then go to a local school? How did that all work?
Okay, he has not been to a local school. He's always gone to private schools, which, just FYI, they are abundant in San Miguel and other parts of Mexico. In the big cities, like, you have a lot of choices. He did kindergarten in the US and then first grade forward in Mexico. He did not speak Spanish when we moved to Mexico. I think I started him like with a teacher and it just felt like epic fail. This was during kindergarten. And I said, okay, he's going to learn it. It's not going to be hard for him. The first school year was a little difficult. There's the adjustment of the language when, because kids can be kids. And when a situation came up, it was like he wasn't able to explain his version because he didn't speak Spanish. So, the other kids would quickly jump in Spanish and say whatever. So it was important for me and has always been to be a part of, the everyday thing. Like, how was the day? What happened? What went down? Like, are you good? So you need to check in with your kids and make sure that they're okay. I think if your child is a little older, it's a different transition. You need to really make sure they're okay, right? Because it can be a bigger adjustment. For him, it was easier because he was little. He had first grade and or kindergarten, and then he went into first grade, but he still misses things about Florida. He still visits. One kid in particular, he got to hang out last week with his kindergarten friend who is incredibly tall. I could not believe it. Yesterday I saw him because my son is about here. This kid is like almost 6 feet and he's only 12 years old. It's crazy.
Wow.
Anyway, I was just like, Jaden, like, what, looking up at Jaden. But my point is that it wasn't too difficult for him. He didn't go to public. He hasn't gone to public school, but we did move around in the first year because I wanted to make sure that he was comfortable and that he liked the school. It wasn't important to me what the academic situation was. And I remember one of the schools, we moved 3 times. One of the schools, and this was in one school year, I paid inscription fee, got the uniform, paid materials and all the things. And then like 2 months later, I was like, oh, it's not feeling right. And I took him out. And I remember when I did it the second time, some of my friends said, oh, they'll adjust and I didn't want him to adjust. I wanted him to like it. I didn't
Right.
want that experience to be, oh, my mom moved me and I remember being traumatized until I liked it. No. So I was willing to move him and we moved to a second school and I was not happy with them. And, I took him out and then I ended up putting him in kind of not accredited school, but it was very laid back. I just called it the chicken coop school. They literally just ran around outside. They built things. They played. They learned about plants and rocks and, and I was just like, I don't care, because he's here to learn the language first. Because
Mhm.
once he learns the language, then he can go to any school and he can articulate the things he needs to. So first grade to me was irrelevant in terms of the academics. So when the second school kept harping on about, oh, well, we wrote these sentences on the board and he didn't write the sentences, I was like, that is so ridiculous. So I pulled him out and I just let him go to it was kind of like a free range type school. They had about 15 children and it was perfect. He loved it there. It was called papalotes, which is flying a kite, right? Flying, basically letting the kids explore and be kids. And then we did Montessori for a few years, and it's been great. He really loves it. He's fully fluent in Spanish, and he loves reading, and he's in robotics and all the things. So it's been a good experience. But no, he hasn't done public school in Mexico.
And around how much per year are the private schools there?
I'm not sure, but I'll tell you, monthly it's about $400 monthly. Yeah.
US dollars.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So has it been challenging maintaining your relationships with your friends and family in the United States since you moved?
Mm, Um, I don't think so. I mean, I think you do drift apart a little bit, but I think trips like this, you make the effort to reunite. I probably am not the best person to ask that question of, because I was always the black sheep in the Rolling Stone anyway. When I moved from Florida, I was already living there for 10 years by myself. And then I moved to Mexico. But my mom visits often. My family knows that they're always welcome to come and spend time. I have the space, so we've done, I should say, several family things that I initiate. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't happen. But I can't say that I've fully lost touch with my close, friends and family members. But I do think that with time, as you get busier with your own life, especially being a parent, in my case, single parent, I have a business. I tend to, really operate on a very functional level where the only person I'm really checking in with almost every day, as much as I can, is my mom. My brothers and I, we have like a group WhatsApp, but I think a lot of families do that.
Mhm.
And I'm here now, so, I'll get to see them. I just hung out with my best friend and her sister on a cruise last week. So that felt, it always feels like we just picked up where we left off, which I love, that it doesn't feel like, oh, I haven't seen them for a very long time and it feels awkward. It never does. And I think it will be that way forever with people that you just have those connections with. I do think that you will eventually not have as many conversations and things like that with time. And I think that that's just human nature, especially as you start making, new circles of friends in the place where you live. I think that that's very common. Yeah.
Yeah. So you seem to have made a lot of friends here in San Miguel de Allende. So how did you go about doing that? Did you go out to meetups and meet people in person, or was it mostly like internet? How did it happen?
Well, San Miguel is special. And I'll say that people will just talk to you on the street and invite you over to their house, literally. That's why I said it's just different. It's kind of one of those things where you're like, it's weird because you don't expect it because it's not what you're used to. But from day one, when I moved into my development where I was living, you know, my friend Pal, who's my friend, she was like one of my first friends. She was living behind me. I went to the pool. She was pregnant. Her daughter was swimming. Micah gets in. and we just hit it off. And she's like, "Oh, come over. You know, my daughter's going to come over and play with Micah. They're really getting along." And she introduced me to her friends and their friends. And you can go out to a restaurant and people will start talking to you and just invite you to hang out. And now that we are building this community of us, you know, so many people have moved to San Miguel in these past years. Because when I moved there, there were a lot less of us there. And my intention was just to show that I was received there, because I had a lot of folks asking, "Oh, what's it like? Is there racism? You know, do you feel out of place and all the things?" And I said, "No, actually, I don't. I feel great." And I also wanted to educate people on how big Mexico was in terms of the country. So I would share my trips and all these things. And through that, people started to become more and more interested in central Mexico, because a lot of people only think Mexico is the beach, and it's
Mhm.
actually much, much larger than the Yucatan, right? Which is where the beach is. There are 32 states in Mexico. So you have lots of options of places to live, and we live in the mountains. So we are literally 5 or 6 hours away from the closest beach. And the Yucatan is like 22 hours by car away from where we are, just so people have an idea of how large the country is. So the intention was to educate individuals, and the community started to grow in terms of the Black community. And with all of those experiences, you know, I've been able to gain, of course, clients, and then friends, and also being, you know, out and about. Yes, you can meet people this way. So it's not hard. It wasn't me going to a meetup or whatever. It's sort of like a word of mouth, friend through a friend. And people are just this way. Also, if you have children, you will meet all the parents because they have a lot of functions. And I met a lot of parents this way as well. You know, people would just start talking to you. It's very human. People just start talking to you. You can go anywhere. If they like your hair, they're like, "Oh, I like your trenzas," and, "Oh, can I touch them?" You know, and they'll just ask, "Where are you from?" Especially the locals. You know, if you can speak Spanish, it's even better. It's even better.
Do you speak Spanish?
Sí, poquito.
And so, how has that been when you first moved there? How was that?
I thought I knew more because I lived in Miami, and you already know South Florida, everyone speaks Spanish. And
Yeah.
I had worked in a Cuban restaurant for 6 years, and no one spoke, like most of the staff didn't speak English. Even the
Mhm.
younger people. It was really interesting to see, you know, individuals who had been there for like 10 years, and kids, like young people, you know. So I thought my Spanish was better until I got to Mexico, and I realized, oh, it's still challenging. So with having a business, it's been something that I've had to learn, and just having the college experience, the travel experience, because I traveled in South America years ago for about 3 months.
Mhm.
And during that travel, I had a teacher that I worked with, and I was able to practice. But when you move to different Spanish speaking countries, the dialect is so different. It almost sounds like a complete different language. And so going from Miami to
Mhm.
Mexico, the dialect was very different. Like the Cubans, the Puerto Ricans, and the Colombianos, they sound different, very different. It's like marbles in the mouth. It's actually, to me, I prefer their Spanish. It just seems sexier somehow, maybe because I was around it a lot. And then in Mexico, it's more pure, but it was harder for me to pick up on it right away. And eventually, um, you know, I realized, oh, you really need to, you know, practice. And now I'm much better. And I have to be better because I work with my staff that, you know, is physically there at the house. And Sandra, she just gets me. She gets my Bojangle Spanish. Yeah.
So we have somebody here that says they're happy to hear your conversations,
Hi,
Martine.
Martin Bellis. Welcome.
So it's Tuesday, you wake up and what does your day look like?
Uh, it's never the same, but I wake up, I'm grateful. I get my kid off to school. He gets picked up by a driver, and I typically start, if I have guests, I kind of wait for them to do, kind of mosey into the kitchen, coffee's ready, my person comes at 9. We chat if there's something going on at the house, who can come and fix it, what do we have to do today, just things like this. What are my clients doing? It depends on the week or what they're there for. For example, relocation, we'll make sure, okay, all the appointments are set, all the things. I oftentimes have Zoom calls that I have to jump on, or maybe run out and get stuff. Tuesday would be the market. So maybe I'll go to the market and pick up things for the house because I like to provide fresh fruit when I have guests. That's like one of the things we provide. But it's never the same. Like I don't have a set routine because I cover a lot of areas of my business, which could be something's not working on the website. Michelle's got to figure it out to, having a meeting with my social media person, to having a meeting with Sandra, who's, taking care of the house, or something's not working. It's never the same. So I'm pulled in a lot of directions, but I'm always like on my feet, going and doing, and probably doing too much, but yeah. Yep.
Okay, so you say you have a driver that takes your son to school, picks him up
Mhm.
too?
Yeah, and takes him to his after school activities, and yeah, another quality of life.
Yeah, he didn't talk about the driver.
Cause I don't want y'all to get like, jealous.
That's amazing. I mean, just that part alone saves you 5 hours. Well, here it'd be 5 hours a week.
Yeah, it saves a lot. I mean, that's something I started to do regularly this school year just because I realized I was just doing the most, like getting him to school by 8:30, and then by the time I get home it's 9. And then, I have to spend time chatting with my clients, if I have clients, which I do often. And then it's like sitting down to work, and then I got to leave at 2 to get him, and then he has robotics at 3 till 4, and then something at 4. It's like I'm just out, right, driving around. I need to be home in front of the computer. I need to work. I need to sit down. I need a set amount of time. So it was worth having someone do this. And he's older. He speaks Spanish. He knows how to get around. So I have a different, comfort level than maybe I had 2 or 3 years ago. I probably wouldn't have done that. Now I feel like, okay, you know what, he's good. He can handle himself, and it's going to be more convenient for me rather than running myself ragged trying to be the chauffeur and everything else.
That's
Mhm.
amazing. So, what is a must try dish in San Miguel de Allende?
Um, Must try my Jamaican food. No, okay. Mexican food. I really like chili rellenos, which is with poblano peppers, and it's just something I've always enjoyed. I'm not a huge Mexican food fan, but there are certain things that I've learned that I like and that are maybe not on menus, typically on menus in the United States. We're used to the tacos and all those types of things. But I love the chili rellenos. It's like the poblano pepper, and if I remember, they burn the skin of the pepper on like fire. I've had them make it at my house, and they kind of like get that like taste to it. I think sometimes they boil it and they'll take the skin off, and then they cut it and they put cheese inside, take the seeds out, and then they put the cheese inside, and then they bread it and deep fry it. And it's almost like a breading with egg, and they deep fry it. And so when you, bless you, or
Thank
salud,
you.
And when they deep fry, it's like the cheese is melted, the pepper is nice and soft, and every now and then there's like kind of a spicy pepper. They're not typically spicy, but every now and then there might be a spicy one. It's just a nice flavor. I really like that a lot. A lot of people like chilaquiles. I'm not a fan. It's like tortilla chips with either a red salsa or a green salsa with cheese. You can get chicken, maybe egg. It's a big breakfast thing, which I don't know. When I see chilaquiles, I think of eating chips at a baseball game or something. But it's a big breakfast thing. Yeah, I mean, there's also what's it called, molcajetes. It's kind of a specialty. It's sort of like, when you go to Chili's, they give you the fajitas on the hot plancha or the hot pan. It's
Yeah.
the same concept, but it's in a volcanic bowl, like the volcanic rock, and it's heated, and they put all the stuff in there, and when it comes out, it just looks more like authentic Mexican thing. And not every place does this. There's certain restaurants that do it. And they put seafood in it and cheese, and it comes out sizzling, and it's like a big volcanic looking bowl. And it's really, really delicious. So I like things like that feel a little bit more authentic. And then mole, a lot of people love mole. I don't.
All
So
right.
I'm not going to talk about it. I don't care for the spices that are in there, but it is very popular as well. Yeah.
So do you have a chef too? Because you said somebody came and made the Mexican dish.
So I have a few ladies that come if I need additional help, if I have an event at the house, because we do events, group events. If someone wants to have a birthday party or come for a girls' trip, or we have like a couple of days where we're offering a package that includes breakfast, then I have a few individuals who will help clean and also cook, and they'll come and prepare food and help us out in the kitchen and stuff like that. So, yes.
So do you travel around Mexico, or when you're back there, do you just kind of stay put in San Miguel?
No, I travel a lot. Yeah, I'll travel around Mexico as much as possible. I've seen a lot of places somewhat close to San Miguel, by car. I've been to like San Luis Potosi, which has a lot of waterfalls. They have Tamul, and just like Sir Edward James Garden. It's like a surrealist garden. I've been to Pinal de Amoles, which is spectacular. I went up to, what else did I do? Bernal, which is also close. It's about an hour and a half. There's Mineral de Pozos, Guanajuato City, Querétaro City. So I'm not opposed to jumping in my car and driving away for a couple of days. This summer I went to Zamora. Um, it just depends. I have a long list of things that I like to see, and when I have time, I'll just go and check them out. Two Decembers ago, I went up to Chihuahua and I took the train ride El Chepe through Copper Canyon, and it was spectacular. It was like a 9-hour train ride. It was so amazing. So yeah, I don't stay in one place. Never did, even when I lived in Connecticut.
Do
Yeah.
you think San Miguel is it for you, or do you think you'll move from here in the future?
I don't think so. I think it will always be my home base because I really, really love living in San Miguel. But I'll say that in the winter months, because it gets cold there, December, maybe mid-November to mid-February, I wouldn't mind being on a beach somewhere else. But I think it will always be my home base for sure. I haven't been anywhere else in Mexico, even though Mexico is spectacular, that I would want to live. And I can't think of anywhere else in the world of all the places I've been to, over 30 something countries, I mean, I love Thailand, but it's so far away. I just don't think I would want to live in another place. can't think of another place. Yeah.
Okay, so given the political climate here in the US, do you think you'll see more people moving to Mexico and San Miguel de Allende in particular?
I believe so. Right when that kind of happened that night, I was getting so many text messages and emails from people the next day. I created a webinar for like the next 4 Sundays after the elections. And, we were pretty full. I think the last one was just before Thanksgiving. That was probably the least attended, but the other ones were, highly attended. And yeah, people seemed like they were ready to make moves. That's why I created like the half week relocation for those who may not be able to come for a full week. And, I've already sold out of February. January, I think there are 2 spaces left. There's some spaces in March and things like that. So, and then people are just coming, they're like, okay, I already did this, this, this. What else do I have to do? So, you know, I always say I'm not there to twist anyone's arm. You do what you need to do in your own life. But I also say make informed decisions. Don't just, have the knee-jerk reaction. Because I feel like if you don't have a good plan, chances are you're not going to succeed, or you may emotionally be overwhelmed by the process because you just jumped into it. You didn't really make a plan. So I think it's important to still plan regardless of the political situation in the US.
Good. Okay, so I have your YouTube channel here. Again, it's a Casa Elm, and your website is the same, casaelm.com.
Yes.
And thank you so much. So if anybody has any last minute questions, we'll look in the chat. But thank you so much for talking with us.
Absolutely.
And
my pleasure.
we will see you next time.
Thank you.